Hello there, my fellow rugby Leinster Lion, a production of the Three Blokes, the Ball and Bod Network. My name is Jeff Pagano, and I run a Leinster and Ireland fan site called Harping on Rugby, and I hope you're all doing well in these head-wrecking times. Here in Ireland, we are still in our first day of lockdown 2.0, but one thing that's different about it this time is that unlike last March, we're still very much hoping to have the end of the 2026 Nations Championship to look forward to. Toes, eyes crossed that everything's going to run smoothly and safely. Joining me tonight on the show to talk about Saturday's clash at the Aviva Stadium between Ireland and Italy are the hosts of two great podcasts. First, from the Loose Head, we have Mr. Jeff Neville. Welcome, sir.
Hiya, bud. How are you getting on?
Not too bad at all. In Galway, known as Master of None, we also have Mr. Stephen Murphy. Good to see you, Stephen.
Cheers, boys. Thanks for having me again.
So before we begin, we're going to first give a shout out to a local business, something we should all be doing at a time like this. This is for Mystery Sportswear, which is a small family-run business. The Mystery Rugby box has a jersey in it, and it also includes a brief fact file about the club, history, the stadium, star players, and stuff. It's the ideal gift for any rugby fan. So check them out at mysterysportswear.co.uk. Okay, right. So let's get on with this. We're talking about Ireland against Italy. So first of all, if Joe can put up the state of the Six Nations table at the moment. When I think about the Six Nations, when I think about Ireland, I'm thinking, at the moment, you remember the World Cup and then you remember the defeat in England. But when you look at this table, you realize that if we actually win these two upcoming matches with maximum points, against Italy and France, of course, hardly a foregone conclusion, but it's definitely something to aim for. If we win those two games, we win our fourth title in 7 years. So that's definitely something to aim for. So that's how things stand at the moment. What are your thoughts now going into as we're picking up the tournament again? What are your general thoughts about Ireland standing in the Six Nations, Jeff?
I think they're in a very good place, and by all means, I'd prefer not to lose to England back in February, but these things happen. It's a very good England team. But as you said, looking at the table there, it's not like, people view that loss to England and think it's the end of the world, but we've a game in hand. 2 maximum points games is doable. I think it is doable against Italy. I like Italy, but I'm sorry to say, it is a doable task. Going away to France will be different, completely different kettle of fish. But I was watching Chasing the Sun there last night, and kind of the situation we're in at the moment kind of reminded me of the Rugby Championship situation the Springboks were in before that World Cup. So we're going over to Italy with a number of guys getting a debut and a number of, kind of guys looking to get their first run out or whatever it is. And a lot of senior guys are going to be stuck on to for the France game. But that's exactly what the Springboks did against Australia. They sent a number of guys out. Herschel Yanti's got his debut in that game as well. And a number of other guys got run out as well. And Rassie sent a number of guys then over to New Zealand to be joined by those boys who played Australia. And his tactic was there's no point, wrecking them in the Australia game when he needs them against the New Zealand game. And as a result, they won well against Australia. They drew against New Zealand, but last minute again. But then they won well over in Salta and they won the Rugby Championship. And I think, the way we're going about this Italy game, there's a lot of similarities there. Probably the only difference is the 6-2 split in the bench, but there's an awful lot of similarities there. I think that we'll get 5 points against Italy, and I like they say, and it is, you don't blame them for saying it, but they'll say, oh, we have to win the game first. But I'd be very surprised if Ireland aren't, getting penalties in the 10 and opting, for the lineouts. And I'm a man who says take your points in Cup Rugby, but they're going out to win the tournament. Let's be honest, if you have a chance to win the tournament, you'll do everything in your power to win it. And that means playing a slightly different game, not taking points. 4 tries, I think it's very, very doable.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about how they approach. They probably have a 2-game strategy, like you said. Look at the two sort of together, as it were. But at the same time, you still have to play what's in front of you. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I agree. Look, normally start of Six Nations, if you tell yourself that you've beaten Wales, you've beaten Scotland, you may have lost England, but you have 2 games where you can still win the Six Nations. You'd take it most years. England, unfortunately, a bit like Saracens with Leinster, they're just a bad matchup for us as a team. So there's not much you can do about that. They're just physically stronger than us in a lot of areas. But yeah, look, I'm kind of glad we're playing France after a few months off, because the form they were in, I know they lost to Scotland, but they were a very confident team. So who knows what they're going to be like coming back now. They're playing Wales this weekend, I think, is in a challenge. So, but Italy really impressed me the first 3 games of Six Nations. They played some great stuff, but they just lacked that killer edge when it comes to actually finishing tries off and finishing games off. So I do expect us to win this game pretty convincingly. They've got a young 10 who's just starting for them as well. So that kind of inspires me a bit that we're going to be a bit more ruthless with that as well. So look, I think we're in a good position. The performances might not be spectacular, but they don't need to be. They just need to get results. And for these 2 games, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Get the job done. Well, we had the team selection early in the week again. It was announced on Wednesday. Joe, just want to put it up there. We'll have a look. I did a podcast there last week where we tried to pick out a team. I think we did pretty well. We got 11 of the 15 between us. But just looking at that team, there was a few contentious positions there. We were wondering who would start at number 9, who would go at 15. Stephen, what did you make of that team?
Yeah, look, I was happy to see the team that came out. Obviously, I think injuries kind of pushed his hand a bit more than actual going for certain selections. But Herring at hooker, I think Kelleher's first choice, but I think he's carrying a knock. So Herring brings in some experience and he's going to be solid. I'm happy to see Tadhg in there with James Ryan. I think that's our most dynamic kind of duo when it comes to locks. Tadhg hasn't fulfilled his potential yet with Ireland, so I'm hoping he does soon. Doris at 6, I think, is a good decision. At Stander at 8, 2 big ball carriers, 2 good lads with balls in hand. Connors I didn't expect that. I thought Van der Fleer would get the nod just because of the form he's been in. He's man the match in the Pro 14 final. But Andy Farrell obviously sees something in Connors, and I've no issues with giving him a chance to prove himself. Stockdale at 15 doesn't massively shock me. He's obviously played there for Ulster. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're kind of trying to put someone in there as a hybrid more than as a full, typical full back. But he's got size, he's got aerial presence. I'm a bit questionable of his defensive tactics and his defensive skills. But apart from that, look at Murray and Sexton. There's a debate to be had there where they should be starting or not. But Murray or Andy Farrell was never going to go too expansive with that, especially with these 2 games and how important they are. But a good bench as well. I'm looking forward to seeing Gibson Park coming off the bench and seeing how he pushes the tempo and what he can do. So yeah, no, I think it's a good team.
Definitely. We when we had our last one of these shows, Jeff, you were talking a lot. We were talking about provincial rugby, and you were talking about Munster and CJ Stander, and now in particular, he's come back with all his superpowers at the breakdown intact. If anything, they're enhanced. And when I saw, I was expecting Van der Fleer to get in there at 7 as well, but when I thought about Connors with his chop tackling and Stander coming in behind him with his superpowers at the breakdown, I just realized, Jesus, you put those 2 together, it could really be a potent force for us without the ball.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about the Connors and Van der Fleer aspect there during the week myself. Well, during the week, yesterday and today, but the way I see it is kind of, Van der Fleer has done nothing wrong, and he never does. I actually can't remember Van der Fleer ever having a bad game. To be honest with you, he's the engine of I don't know what, and he just doesn't seem to get tired. But the way I see it is, he's done nothing wrong, but neither has Connors for Leinster. And at the end of the day, I kind of made the analogy of a job interview. When you go in for a job interview and they say, look, we have this new post or we have this new role created inside a job for new applicants, and you say, right, I'd love that. And then they turn around and go, but you need 3 years experience or something like that. You can't get the experience without having the job. You can't get the job without having the experience. In my eyes, Van der Fleer has done nothing wrong. The only way Connors is going to get to that level as well is by playing. And I think the same thing about Stockdale at 15. I think Shane Daly's actually quite unlucky not to get a nod in that 23, because he's been probably the best 15 for me since provincial rugby returned. But it is what it is. But at the end of the day, Stockdale, as you said, Stephen, as you alluded to a minute ago, but his defensive errors, like, I mean, the last game I saw him play against was Cheslin Cobley. And like, I mean, if you can tell me who can defend that man, like, you should be up there as well coaching. But like, when it comes to Stockdale at 15, he has played an awful lot there, 20 schools and everything like that. And if people think he's out of form, or if people are arguing that he's out of form, I mean, there's only one way to get form back, and that's to play. And it's not by sitting down watching other fellas play and thinking, oh, geez, that could be me in that jersey, or I could have done that, or something like that. Like, if he has a stormer against Italy, suddenly everyone's going Stockdale's back, and there's only one way to get that mindset, and that's to let him play and to watch him play. But overall, big fan of the team. I think Farrell is rewarding form. Like, you look at Hugo Keenan coming in as well. You see Ed Byrne on the bench for his first cap as well, which is fantastic. Jemison Gibson Park coming in for his debut. Jemison Gibson Park probably being one of the coolest cucumbers I've ever seen on a pitch. Just seems to walk to the ruck and takes in everything around him, but still makes the right decision every time. And then having Henshaw on the bench, then he can cover 15, centre, whatever it is. Push comes to shove, he can come on at 13 if needed. Let's say if there's back three injuries, and Ringrose could even push to the wing if push comes to shove. And we've been in games against Italy in the past where Peter O'Mahony was on the wing, so nothing really surprises me either, Mm-hmm. But no, I think it's a great selection. I think it leaves a lot of doors open for France then the following week, and even on that alone, if you look at the Josh van der Fleer argument and Will Connors, Josh van der Fleer, man of the match, Pro 14 final, whatever, hasn't put a foot wrong in I don't know how many years. He's looking at Will Connors now getting a chance, and he's thinking, if I get the nod against France, I'm going to have to up it even further. And competition breeds a winning team, and competition is great for a team. And even if you look at 7, I mean, Dan Levy's back as well for Leinster this weekend. For Zebra, there's another one, So no, I think it's a very good team. I think it's really well balanced. And like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do against Italy now, to be honest with you. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like with Stock. My thing about Stockdale, I mean, I agree with what everyone says about his question mark on defense and all, but it looks like it was a plan from back when we came back from the COVID break. They played him at 15 for Ulster. It's like that. It was kind of it's like this. They were always going towards this, and obviously they haven't seen enough. He had a good game the other week against the Ospreys, but the Ospreys isn't the Six Nations, I know, but it was a different kind. He has shown that he can play well at that position, so we'll just see how he does. But it does look like they were leading to this with their previous selections, so we'll just see how that goes. All right, so well, we've talked a lot about the players that are in the squad. How about we have a quick look at those who we thought mightn't to make it? We talked about Josh van der Fleer didn't make the 23, but even those maybe who were left out of the wider panel squad that you might have thought would have got a call up. What did you think, Jeff?
I genuinely thought Shane Daly, he was my biggest surprise. Like, the fact that like Caelan Doris is involved is in no way surprising. Like, he's just going from strength to strength since he started lining out with Leinster. Tyke Byrne, I'm happy to see him in the row because I actually think second row is his best position, but probably Shane Daly was my biggest surprise alongside Van der Fleer. Van der Fleer, understandable. I felt Shane Daly really, really warranted a place. Like, even the way he counters when he gets ball deep, his first instinct isn't to kind of either take contact or clear the ball. Like, he does look up, he looks for a gap, he looks to go for it, and maybe I'm looking at it with Munster sunglasses on. It was great to see that counter attack finally from a 15, or great to see that kind of, I suppose, desire to run it back more than anything and just keep the game alive and stuff. But I thought that him coming in against Italy, having a guy like Paolo Garbisi, I think he's going to be under pressure already by the back row, and like Sexton is going to be yelling at him all day. You can just guarantee it, but to have a 10 like him, if he kicks loose, I think Shane Daly's the man you want running back, especially with Larmer out. I think just to have that footwork in there, just to have that kind of presence of mind to run it back. And that's not to say Stockdale can't. I just felt that the way Daly was playing leading up to this game, that I thought that he would get the nod, but I'm not Andy Farrell, I suppose.
Yeah, like I mean, I suppose it was a on the one hand, you're looking at the form, which normally what I'd be going for, but I guess, like I say, maybe this was kind of an overall scheme of things, putting him at fullback. I don't know, but like you say, we don't know. We just see the selections. Stephen, is there anyone you would have added in, or someone you would have replaced?
Yeah, well, like in terms of overall squad, obviously Cooney not getting selected was a big shock. I think to me personally, I'm a Cooney fan. I think I disagree with Jeff on one thing, what he said about being picked on form, because I think there's a few players there who aren't, and Murray, I think personally, is one of them. I think Marmion has been playing really well for Connacht. He could be, a bit begrudged he's not on the squad or matchday squad. Van der Fleer again is one, just because I thought he's been playing really well, but again, I'm not annoyed that that Doris is getting. Oh no, sorry, not Doris. That Connors is getting the nod ahead of him. So a few of them. Cooney, I think, obviously is a big one, and I think he played really well there for Ulster the last game out, and I think he's going to go on a bit of a revenge tour, and I'm looking forward to seeing it personally. But that's my big one there, personally, for me.
Yeah, there was like 9 and 15. I thought when I first saw the squad, I said, well, they're going to be the positions where it's everyone's going to have opinions, everyone's going to have a debate, and probably everyone's going to be wrong when it comes to the end of the day. And a lot of people were saying, pretty much anyone I spoke to anyway, they were leaving Murray out of the team altogether. They were naming their team, and some didn't even have Murray in the 23. And I was just like, well, hang on a second now. He's not, he's back with Munster now. He's getting his game time. He's been doing okay since the COVID break. If you have him even 90%, you'd probably want him in the team, especially with Sexton, with the way they play together. But then Cooney, like he was ready to come up to the team. He began to have his chance. He was unlucky with the COVID break, but then he had just a slight dip in form. And now you've got Gibson Park playing well for Leinster. So it's a question again: is it form, or is it what you plan to do? Coming back from the break. So there was a lot of different possibilities there. But so yeah, that's grand. So we're going to take a few comments here. First of all, we've one from Nigel Quigley. He says, Henshaw wasn't very good last year against England at 15. I'll heed your comment more if you did, in fact, point out that all those that have underperformed at times. That's true, Nigel. Let's see, what else have we got?
Nobody was very good against England that day. It wasn't just Henshaw.
That's true. That was a joint effort. Henshaw in at 15 playing Stockdale is akin to when Earls wanted to play 13. Square peg, round hole. Interesting from Joe Lyons there.
Earls played 13 for all through school and when he first broke in as well. So, like, it's not like he just decided, I think, he wanted to play 13. He had the experience in that. That comment. But
well, he was done with that. It wasn't there a pre-World Cup match against England where I think he was playing with Darcy in the center, and there was just one moment where they just kind of blew through the middle, and that moment always framed him as a can't play 13. That sort of stuck in everyone's minds. I think that was a lot of times it was just one bad performance or even one key moment when you change position, and you're kind of tired for life with that. But
just on the fullback, I agree with Jeff. I think Shane Daly is our actual purest fullback, if that makes sense. I think when it comes to Stockdale and Conway, we are trying to fit, so I can agree with Square, in the round holes. But with Daly, we don't need a fullback that is electrifying going forward. We just need one that's solid, that can deal with a high ball, and that teams aren't going to look to punish. Carney was obviously electrifying back in the the late 2000s and early 10s, but his last few years he was just solid. He was in the right place at the right time and didn't do anything stupid. That's all we're really looking for here, and I think Shane Daly could be the answer to that. In regards to other ones, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely worth a go. I mean, we're in other positions. We're all about bringing in new players and trying out new names. I guess maybe they're just trying to find the balance. We're putting in, they only want so many players. Maybe he'll get a go at maybe 23 next week or something. So hopefully he'll be involved because he is definitely a form 15 at the moment. Right.
Just on that comment there that says McCluskey's omission. Like, I understand he's been playing very well as well for Ulster, but my only argument there is how would you leave out Aki, Henshaw, or Ringrose? It's I think that if McCluskey came in at a different time when he wasn't competing with those boys, it'd be a different story altogether. He'd have a lot more caps than he does now. But I mean, personally, I think Aki has the ability to gel with any centre partner he's ever been put beside. Henshaw is just a class act at 12. His distribution's unbelievable. His defence is unbelievable. And I think Ringrose is just a Rolls Royce, and that's not to say McCluskey isn't, but I'm just saying, how do you take a jersey off those three boys who haven't ever done anything wrong in the centre either,
And Aki has become, with all this shouting from the touchlines, things and stuff, he's become kind of a key player just to have in the squad. He's become a team player. They all play for him as well. They all respond to him as well. I'm not saying they wouldn't for McCluskey as well, but like you say, he's there now, and he's got the jersey, and it would take a hell of an effort to take it off him. There's no question there. And even leaving, a lot of people would have assumed the Henshaw Ringrose partnership wouldn't be broken, but when you've got Aki playing the way he is, you just couldn't possibly leave him out, But anyway. But let's talk tactics now. Anyway, let's look at the way Ireland may approach this. They're playing a certain way. Like Andy Farrell's he's only been in the job for like 5 minutes. We haven't really seen a Farrell kind of style evolve yet. So what start with you, Stephen. What way do you think Ireland might approach this as opposed to changing from the previous manager?
Yeah, it's not going to be too different, I wouldn't imagine, especially compared to the first 3 games of the Six Nations, because he just hasn't had time, in fairness to Andy Farrell. The people who are calling for his head already, that's it's nonsense. You need to give a coach some time to, work with players. And was 3 games ago, it was the World Cup. So that's ridiculous. So I was actually, Jeff spoke about the Chasing the Sun, and I watched the episode 3 recently there where South Africa played Italy in the World Cup, and Razzie Erasmus said, look, when they have time and space in the ball, they can throw it about. Their flair team, they can be good. But if you smash the crap out of them, they're not going to be too positive about it. So I think we need to be that. Italy always bring physicality, but we've seen the first 3 games of the Six Nations, they're very comfortable throwing the ball around, kicks around the back. If they have time on the ball, they're going to play pretty well. So we need to be physical. We need to be quick line speed. We need to, a bit like what England do to us, just get in their face and make it uncomfortable for them. I hope we see that. We'll obviously see the same sort of contestable kicks, which is fair enough. It is what it is at this stage. Unfortunately, I don't see too much change from the last few games, just because, again, he hasn't had time to implement anything. And I would hope that in such short a time that he hasn't tried to implement anything, because that could lead to even worse results. But I'd say in the 8-game tournament that's coming up, I think we'll see a bit more change, and I hope so. But for these 2 games, it's just about getting results.
Yeah, and you were saying, Jeff, that we're not just going to be going for the win. You think that we're going to play in such a way that we want to get the 4 tries under the belt as soon as we possibly can?
I think so, 100%. I think the game is going to be played in 3 different areas for Ireland. I think first off is, as Stephen said, they're just pure dominance in everything they do. Not look just to make a tackle, but a big positive one. Not just look to get off the line, but to get off the line hard and to really, eat up that space. The second thing I think is going to be the speed of the breakdown. I think Ireland have a nice quick breakdown, put Italy on the back foot over and over. And the third part of that feeds off that breakdown that's just been being organised. And I think between being dominant, a nice quick 2-second breakdown, being well organised, then off the back of that, winning that race off that organisation, let's say beating Italy to it, I think that's just going to lead to penalties. I think those penalties will be kicked to the corner. And I just think that they're just going to go and go and go until they get the 4 tries. I don't think, fine, the first couple of penalties, you might go 3, 6, 9, whatever it is. Every team does that. But I think when you get to 20 minutes in, they get a penalty on the 10. I think he'll know, Sexton will no more be lining that up than I will. It'll be just put down the line, maul it, whatever. If you get a penalty, maul it again. Just go get your 4 tries, job done, and move on to the next one. I think it will be very much a case of just get the job done. Yeah.
Get it over early. Yeah, that's probably the way they're going to be looking at it. Well, moving on to the way our opposition might be playing this weekend. I on my own podcast just yesterday, I had an Italian fan, Andrea Trunkin, who runs the Rugby Italy Rugby United account, and he basically said that the Italians are trying to. Well, one thing they've always lacked over the years is an identity of a way an actual style of way. I mean, we would always say things like, they can't play for 80 minutes. They have trouble finding a number 10, concrete number 10, things like that. But that's not the kind of identity they want. Obviously, they want a style that they're known for and that they can get results with. And it's always been a kind of an uphill battle. What way can you see them playing this weekend, Jeff?
I think, as Stephen said, they're going to look to throw the ball around, and I think, as Troncan said as well, didn't he say something like they just want to be competitive, or they want to stay competitive,
physical and competitive? Yeah.
I think coming out with a comment like that, saying we just want to stay physically competitive, I mean, surely that's the goal from the off. Like it's a confrontational game. If you're not winning breakdowns, if you're not winning collisions, like, you're not going to win. It's that simple. Like that's element number one. So just to say we want to stay competitive, to me, alludes that at some point he thinks they might fall off. I think that's going to happen. Sadly, just because of the way I think Ireland are going to approach this game, because they need 5 points. I think they will throw the ball around, but I think Ireland defensively will be set well. They won't be too narrow or anything like that. Throwing the ball around only works if you get outside, let's say, the 15-metre lines, and if you're looking to attack down there. But, like, I mean, you've Conway, you've Keenan, who's doing well, Stockdale. Like, yeah, you can talk about kind of the defensive side, but, like, he's going to be solid. Like, he'll be fine. I think throwing the ball around doesn't work when you have a defense that's looking to get up hard into your face. You're not given that freedom or that space to do so. It leads to errors. And in terms of just staying competitive, I mean, like, that's job description number one, I think if they're, like, it sounds mean, it does sound really mean, I don't even like saying it, but if you're going to hang your hat on a culture and your culture is just to stay competitive, I mean, you should be doing that anyway as professional rugby players, like, as any rugby player, So I think, yeah, as Stephen said, they'll throw the ball around a bit. I really, really, really like their 10 coming in, Garbisi. I think he's just a baller. And he'll have a bit of magic about him as well. But, like, I mean, you can only have so much magic when it's shut down real quick by the likes of Aki, like, either screaming at you or coming at you as hard as Aki does. I wouldn't like to face that either. But yeah, it's that's it really. Like, I think they'll look to throw the ball around. They'll be in the game for 50, 55, and then I think we'll just eke away then.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about, we've been sitting here talking about the likes of Stockdale's defense and all that kind of stuff. I mean, these are kind of, obviously they're looking at this too, and they'll be looking at possible weaknesses in our side of things. What do you think they'll be going for, Stephen, when they're approaching how to get past us?
Yeah, they might look at the Stockdale thing and they might try and test him early, but I wouldn't worry about Stockdale in the air. As I said, he's a big man, he's a big frame, he's a good leap on him. I'm not worried about that. Whereas I would be a bit worried if we were starting someone like Larmer, just because I feel like they would target that earlier. Look at Tommaso Allen, who played the first 3 games, is a big miss for him. So this guy coming in, Garbisi, he's got big shoes to fill in that sense, because Tommaso Allen controlled everything in those first 3 games. And the 12, then Carlo Cana as well, is kind of second in command when he also controls the play. So I'm expecting a big game from him, just because I think he's going to be really looking to help out Garbisi in this first kind of game and kind of settle things down. But look, Italy are going to try what they did the first 3 games, and they're going to try to go out wide early and try and beat us that way. And I'd be very disappointed if Ireland let that happen, because it's pretty obvious, and I think we're good enough to stop that.
I think, I just think Italy going for a 6-2 split really shows their hand straight away. So, like, you can go to throw the ball around, but again, 50 minutes when you have only 2 fresh backs coming on, like, that plan won't work if you're tired, like, I think they look to keep it tight. As well, like, I know I said they look to keep to throw the ball around, but like a 6-2 split says, we might keep it tight too, but it's I don't know. I think we're going to have far too much class from them anyway in defence. And just a note actually as well on Maxime Mbanda, it was great to see him get an award for his work during the COVID lockdown. Actually, I only saw that there yesterday, the day before, but it's a nice touch.
Definitely. So I guess it's that the whole classic thing. I mean, they can want to identify their own kind of style all they want, but when they're coming into a game like this away from home, even without a crowd, they're the only way they can really approach it is to, like you say, keep it physical, keep it tight, and try to be there or thereabouts, like around the 50, 60-minute mark, and then play the game from there. But like you say, we should. Hopefully, all going well, we should have enough for them to keep them at bay with all that's going on. So we'll just wait to see how that pans out. Okay, just looking at a few comments here. I have one here from someone called Chief Borrower. Do the panel think that this team has any bearing as a start point to the future, or is it a game that just needs getting out of the way? Are we worried about Italy?
I can take that first.
Yeah.
Yes, worried a little bit, yes, because of how the promise that they showed and the potential they showed in the first 3 games. Ireland hasn't played in as a team together in whatever it is, 8 months at this stage, is it? 7, 8 months. So you never know what could happen. I think that it'll be a tight game for the first half. I do expect us to pull away in the second half. Bearings on the future. You have some players there that definitely will be around for a while. I think Hugo Keenan coming in will be there for a while. Obviously, Will Connors. I do think in large those selections were made because of injury from other players, but I think game 5 against France, I think the back line will stay pretty much the same as it is in this game. The pack might change around a bit just because that's 6, 7, 8. You've got so many options. We are kind of spoilt for choice in that section. So I think that he might swap around for that, but I think the backs will remain pretty much the same.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I have no argument there at all. I think that back line is pretty solid. The only difference you might see is Henshaw come into a start maybe, and Keenan coming off that wing maybe if for that France game. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty solid for the French game. If Kelleher is back for that French game, unless Herring maybe has a stormer, I think Kelleher might jump in there. I think the front row is going to be really tested, especially a tight head over the next couple of weeks, just with Furlong being injured and stuff. But you know, you have John Ryan as well, who's solid. You know, he's always there, and it's great to see Beelum back in the mix actually after so long, as well.
Beelum's good, yeah. Beelum's really good.
Yeah, and like, you know, even seeing Beelum, if he started against France, like, you know, in my eyes, that's totally fine. Like, he's beaten New Zealand as well and stuff like that. Like, he's a strong CV as well, you know. So it's really good to see him back. It's I tell you, it's great to see Ed Byrne getting in after just working for so long to get it. I suppose there's no other way to describe it. Is it really? Like, that's exactly what it did. He's just been working towards that. But no, I think it's like any of the guys getting a debut. Yeah, injury may have helped. Like, I mean, if you see like Ulton Delang getting a call up and stuff like that, like, injury does help. It's unfortunate for one, but it opens a door for another. But like, it's completely warranted at the same time, you know, that those guys are there. So yeah, build them for the future. I think we could see a lot of them in the future as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the way with the Six Nations. I mean, that's the money spinner for the IRFU, and it's like whatever time of year it is, or even whether we're actually in contention or not for the title, the primary goal is to finish as high up as we possibly can. So when you're faced with these 2 matches and then a rake of other games down the line that won't matter as much, you're always going to be looking to put the best team you can out for these games, regardless. You know, we are missing a lot of players. You got Ty Furlong for different reasons, Ian Henderson, all these types of players missing from the team. But this is, you know, the players in this team, I think, for Italy can feel good that this is pretty much as optimal a team as they could have. You know, new players are coming in, but they would have gotten their chance anyway. It's not like they're only there because they like you say, they've earned their chance. So there's a lot to see from this team, and like you say, you can't see a lot of them being taken forward to next week against France, unless some other players come back as well. So that's definitely something there. Okay, so why don't we just maybe talk a little bit about the rest of the competition? I mean, there's only us in Italy playing this week, but there's a few more matches going on next week, and the match against France is going to be whatever happens. If we do get the 5 points this week, touch wood, all that stuff, we're gonna still have it in our hands when we play France because we're playing last. But then again, there'll be 2 matches gone before us, so they'll be putting us under pressure. How do you see those going, Jeff?
Well, I think Italy are next week against England. They're not going to enjoy it too much, I don't think, because England are going to go out all guns blazing just to make sure they've done what they can do to finish, to finish strong. So I think, unfortunately, Italy are on a road to a bit of a drubbing there against England. Wales, Scotland will be exciting, I think. And it's great to see Sheedy getting called up to the Wales squad as well after an unbelievable season with the Bears, and stuff like that. I'm really looking forward to that game in Parky Scarlets. Scotland have Finn Russell back in as well. And, when you're playing against a guy like Finn Russell, he is just a magician. Was it Juan Hernandez? They used to, or maybe I have that name wrong now, the Argentinian 15, they used to call him El Magico.
Yeah.
Juan Martin Fernandez or Hernandez, yeah. That title could easily be given to Finn Russell as well, he may as well have gloves on his feet, the things he can do with a ball, but that'll be an interesting one. I think Wales might tip that one just between both home advantage and probably being a little bit more settled in that. And then that France game, as you said, if we get 5 points against Italy, it's going to be a case of, I do think France will be a case of win the game first, unlike the Italy game. And I think they'll be happy to take a win, be it a point or be it 4 tries, whatever it is. 4 tries, don't get me wrong, sweet as. And if we're pulling away at the end, we'll look for the 4. But I think it's a case of 3, 6, 9, 12, whatever you can against France at home. And as Stephen said earlier, that French team back there before the break, different gravy, and even given the number of debuts they gave at the start and the average age of their squad back in February was it around 25 or something like that? It was insane. Yeah. It was insanely young, but they make it work. They've one of the best halfback pairings in the world, between Intermac and Dupont. And what age are they? So they play with no fear. They're at home. If they can bring the form they were in before lockdown, that's going to be an absolute belter of a game. But I think next week I'll go with a Wales-England, and I will back Ireland for it, because you have to, don't you, at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But that's who I'd probably go for now next week.
Very good. Stephen?
Yeah, rather boringly, obviously, I think it's going to be the same. Wales were kind of unlucky. They should have probably won that France game before the break. A few decisions kind of went against them, and they lost to us because I think beating Italy the first day so easily kind of didn't help them then coming to play us, because the intensity nearly wasn't there, and the level of opposition that they kind of were taken off guard by, and that happens occasionally. But they just couldn't match us that day for intensity. And again, they came close, and that France game was what I talk about, one of the games of the year or games of the Six Nations. It was a belter of a game, and an Intermac interception really won that game for them. So France, then I think they'll have enough to sneak Scotland. I think Scotland have shown promise, but just not at that quite level yet. Italy, England, unfortunately, I'd love to see Italy win this game, and you never know. Parise might score 6 tries on his farewell tour. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Is this finally his last game, or is he going to play on for another couple of years?
It's his last game.
Last game until he decides to come back. But I think England are going to be too strong for that, unfortunately. But the France-Ireland game, you look at France, have been incredible. The Sean Edwards defence has really worked wonders this year. The Scotland game that they lost, Intermac did go off injured pretty early in that game, and they brought on, I think it's Jalibert who come on and just wasn't quite that level yet. They've been playing regularly in regards to club. Dupont and Intermac have been playing and in good form in European competitions. So it's going to be very tough. I'll obviously back Ireland, as I always will, but by God, I'll be nervous.
That Wales squad just before the break as well. And would I be right in saying the last 3 in a row before the break? We beat them. France beat them. And England beat them, yeah. But if I remember correctly, England only bet them by maybe 3. They probably should have won that France game at home. There was only 3-4 points in it or something like that.
4 points,
4 points. At the end of the day, the columns, the win column will say 0 and the lose column will say 3. But there's such fine margins at this level of sport. Bounce football or whatever it is. A simple call from a ref. If Wales got 1 penalty or if England got 1 penalty less, it's as simple as that, So while I don't think I wouldn't be quick to say they were in poor form before the break, I think the break will help, and again, they had Pivac coming in, didn't they, just after the World Cup? So like, it's a different, again, just like Ireland, it's a different coaching ticket coming in, like, and stuff. But I don't think they were in bad form before the break. I think the break would probably help them, and like if they play just as well as they did before the break, Scotland are in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, looking at this Six Nations, I mean, obviously we haven't had any Test rugby to go on for a while, and we will know a lot more about that final weekend once we've seen some rugby this weekend. But sure, that's how we are at the start of every Six Nations anyway. I mean, it's been a few months since the previous November, and we don't, the teams are kind of just thrown together straight into the tournament. There's no warm-up matches or anything, so it'll be interesting to see. Although Scotland are getting a warm-up this week, so that's and they are playing some rugby beforehand, but we'll see how that goes next week. Now, had a good question there from Stefan O'Farrell. Just basically, who are you most we're going back to Ireland, Italy again. Who are you most excited to watch in this game? Well, for me, it's Will Connors, just basically because I'm a defensive nerd, and I'm like, I would watch. You never see YouTube clips of the 10 best goal line stands of 30 phases where teams don't score a try. You never see that, but I could watch that if someone made it. Maybe I will do one day. He's so good in those. He could be like, there'd be a series, and there could be 3 or 4 times he'll do crucial tackles. And like I said earlier, with CJ Stander there as well, ready to get over the ball in the form he's in, that could be a real strength against the Italians. So I'm looking forward to that myself. What about you, Stephen? One player.
I only one player. Oh, that's not fair. I need about 7. Amazingly enough, Gibson Park off the bench, if he gets 30-40 minutes, I will be extremely excited to see that, because I just want to see if he will be allowed to play the game that he's really good at, which is quick tempo, or will he fit into this typical kind of Farrell scrum half row at the moment. On starters, I'm actually interested to see how Hugo Keenan gets on. He's kind of rose through the ranks pretty quickly at Leinster, and he's shown great form, and he seems pretty fearless. So at international level, I'm excited to see him.
Yep. Jeff?
Can I cheat and say one from each? Would that be wrong, or is that okay?
Go on, Toad. We'll cut you off after your first one.
I'll cheat. Well, first off, for Ireland anyway, Andrew Conway. I just love watching him play. Energy, ability, decision making, even in defence, like absolutely everything about him. I think he is world class. Then for Italy, then I'm going to go for Jake Pelledri, just because he's like the Italian standard, really, isn't he? Like, he just bludgeons people, carries hard. I just love watching him play, just for the physicality side of it. But if I had to pick one of the two, I'd probably go with Conway, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. Conway's really played his way into the team, and he'd be like another one with, loads of players coming back from injury, and that he'd be a hard one to shift at the team. I mean, he's another one who can play 15. He wasn't even in our 15 conversation, but he could definitely be there. He's just kind of out of a sea. When he came up, there was a sea of talent ahead of him already at Leinster. Then he made the move to Munster, and there was also players there, but he's just fought his way. He's played his game, and he's done some loads of man of the match performances for Munster and Ireland, and he's really earned his place. And it's really hard to see him not being in the team now, I think, at this stage. But let's see some other comments there. Let's see. Is there no home advantage without a crowd? Do you think that the crowd factor plays a difference, or are they used to that at this stage, having played for a few weeks without the crowds? That's from Joe Lyons.
It's a good question, isn't it?
You can go first, Jeff.
Cheers. I think home advantage, even without a crowd, you still know the little, I'd say there's a comfort in looking at the stadium. There's a comfort in knowing of what you've achieved in that stadium in the past. There's a comfort of knowing you've gone there and won. I'm probably tapping a bit too far into the psychology of it, but I'd say just that comfort. Like, you have Italy coming over. Like, let's say Italy are saying to themselves, okay, maybe we've never won in Dublin. Like, that's a home advantage already, even without a crowd. So I do think there is a home advantage without a crowd. And don't get me wrong, Swain, like, the referee probably won't make a difference for him, but I think for the teams playing, if you're Johnny Sexton lining up a kick in the Aviva, you've done it, I don't know how many thousands of times. There's a comfort in knowing that you've done it before successfully there. And I think that does feed into it. Whereas if you're Italy coming over and you say we've never won in Dublin, that's automatically a negative connotation. So I do think there's a home advantage even without the crowd. Probably not as much, but I do think it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole traveling aspect. I mean, they do have to come over. They're out of their comfort zone at home, and they still have to come to the stadium the day of the match and train different circumstances. So there would be an element where they where it will be different for them. But I suppose it's a case of getting used to it. What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I agree. There's still a bit of a home advantage, but it's definitely depleted. I think even with the travel is a big thing, because even with COVID now, you have to stay in the bubble. So even I'm sure some players like to go out the night before a game and have a stroll around the town or like that, or go for a coffee. That's gone. Can't do that. The kicking point's a great point by Jeff. Like your depth perceptions, Johnny Sexton's depth perception around Aviva, I'm sure right now it's like the back of his hand. You know, compared to an away kind of player coming in, he's not going to have that same comfort. Although I'm sure Johnny Sexton has pretty good memories of Paris after that drop kick. So hopefully he'll be in good form for that game.
Please God. Well, hopefully it won't come to that. But if we do need it, I suppose our hearts can take it. So there you go. So okay, just one more question about just basically the Ireland team in general. I mean, we've got, with the Six Nations, hopefully it all goes well. But then after that, going forward, we've got this autumn Nations Cup thing thrown together in November, and then not too long after that, we have another Six Nations. Hopefully with fans maybe next year. How do you see Ireland starting to build towards France 2023 from there?
I'll let you go first this time, Stephen.
Gentleman as always, Jeff. I'm actually glad you asked this, because I'm pretty strong opinions on this. This 18 tournament. I would have a rule that anyone with over 15 caps shouldn't go. Simply because what benefit is Johnny Sexton or Conor Murray or CJ Stand or O'Mahony's, those kind of players? No benefit of them going to that sort of team. Let's be honest, this tournament doesn't really matter. It's a great way, an amazing opportunity where you don't have those opportunities in Six Nations to blood young players. Players should be playing this who have never started before. Even like Ben Healy's from Munster, get him in. Let's see what he can do. We don't know what these lads can do at that level until they get the opportunity to do so. We don't have to worry about World Cup seasons, because that's already done. We've seen the positives of this. France, as you said, they gutted their team out to start this year, come in with loads of youth, lads from underage teams that were used to winning, and it worked straight away. Like, they had a blip against Scotland, which is going to happen with a young team, but I'd rather that than going with something that we know sort of isn't going to be good enough and still doing it. So I'd have that rule going into that tournament. There's loads of young players on these provinces that with the current regime won't ever get a chance, because, as we said, there's too many good players around. So this 18 tournament. Why not get lads in? Who cares if we win or we lose? It doesn't matter. What we need to know is Ross Byrne good enough to succeed as Sexton's? Is Harry Byrne better? We don't know at that level. At Leinster, it's one thing, but to go to that next step of international, let's get these young lads in. Let's get them blooded. Why not? Let's have a massive selection pool instead of 30 players.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like I say, the shackles are off when it comes to pressure for where we finish in the league table. I mean, if we lose all 4 matches, but at least we've tried out some young players, that'll be something. We'll have had a look at people. I mean, if you judge it by the Twitter comments, obviously, if we lose a lot of matches, we're going to be slated. It's going to be Farrell out again. It's going to be all that crap. But you don't go by that. You want to try out some new players coming up, because there's a lot of players coming up doing well for their provinces, all 4 provinces, and this is the chance to do it. What do you think, Jeff?
I think there is that side of it, because the draw for the next World Cup has already been made, so our rankings no longer count. So therefore, if, for example, we did lose to Wales, England, Georgia, and to be considered whoever it is, like, in terms of France 2023, makes no odds, really. But what I will say is rugby is a results-driven business, especially like professional rugby is a results-driven business. You have, let's say, if you take that England game, and I don't mean to nitpick here, Stephen, but like you're saying, throw Ben Healy in the mix. He's not played that much with Munster, and you want to throw him in against England. And I know England would have maybe the 15 cap rule as well, like that you said. But at the end of the day, the last team that Johnny Sexton lost to internationally was England. So you're telling him straight away, look, I know he's kind of coming towards the end of his career, but you're automatically almost, taking him away from a game that he would be itching to put right. In terms of seeing the Ross Byrnes, the Harry Byrnes and stuff, I mean, I think Ross Byrne is good enough to play against England. If you look at the double header he played against, I want to say Claremont, maybe 2 seasons ago in the Champions Cup around the December back-to-back. Jeff, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong there. But I think it was Claremont. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember. But, he played back-to-back in that, and he absolutely smashed it. And he does smash every game that he plays. I think in that game, start Sexton, but give Ross Byrne half an hour against England, or even start Ross Byrne against England, but I wouldn't jump straight in the deep end and start your Harry Byrnes, who, hasn't been capped yet, or your Ben Healy, who's only maybe 3 games into Munster. I think it's a bit of a step too far. I think the likes of, let's say, that Wales game, start Ed Byrne, start Hugo Keenan, start Shane Daly, but start them alongside players who have the experience and who can turn to them and say, look, if let's say you start Shane Daly against Wales and he knocks on the first high ball, you have someone on the wing like Stockdale or something who's been there, done that, can turn and say, look, kid, don't worry about it. Like, these things happen, and it's just having that, I think, that comfort inside of it, that mix between youth and experience, where the experience can say it's fine. Like Will Connors playing alongside Doris and CJ this weekend. I mean, like, Doris is still quite young, he is very young, and then you have CJ who can, turn around to the 2 boys and say, like, just keep at it, like, you're doing fine. And for a Will Connors to have a CJ Stander beside him saying you're doing great, like, you can't buy that, So I do see the point in blood and young fellas and, getting them in, but at the same time, it's results driven, and you need that cool head of experience in order just to make sure that things are ticking away they should be.
Yeah, it's definitely a point. I mean, it's like you say, there would be a need to have experience in there, and I suppose one question is like, did you think that Sexton was always going to be the Ireland captain going forward? The COVID thing kind of broke it up a little bit, and he became captain for the Six Nations. So the question is, would he stay captain for this competition, the full competition? Or do you think they try out other leadership options? Excuse me.
For the remainder of this Six Nations is in the last 2 games.
No. In the Autumn Nations.
No, I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't be bringing him. That's probably why I wouldn't be bringing him. I'd be letting him up.
Who would you have?
It's tough. I don't
James
know.
Ryan.
James Ryan again. If he's going, I think Leinster, and I could tell me if I'm wrong, but they seem to be viewing O'Brien Bird as that sort of a situation already. I've seen a few games where they'll consult him at penalty time for, do we go to the corner or do you want to kick 3 points? So they're obviously moulding him up to that stage. But James Ryan actually at the moment is obviously the immediate successor. He's got that bit of anger in him, which I love, which we need a bit more of. So yeah, I think he's the pole position for that.
Okay. We've had a comment here from Nigel Quigley. You want to throw it up there, Joe? Guys, you needed an Ulster pundit on. We aren't getting a player in any of these teams. What's going on?
I did have, in my notes, I do have 2 players for by less than 15 caps. I have Hume and Marcus Ray. So Nigel, that's for you.
There you go. Shout out to Nigel for that one. See, hope he likes them. Well, we're coming to a close here, guys. That was a great chat. We want to give a shout out to the women's team as well. They're playing. If you're watching this game, we'll all be watching on the telly as it is, the way things are. And kickoff is 3:30 for the men. But when that's over, stay tuned. Maybe switch over to RT2 and cheer on the women. Get on Twitter and give them as much support as you can. Best of luck to them. They had a couple of issues. They had to leave out. They had a bit of a COVID scare, I think.
That's come out negative now, so all players are back.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's good. Constantine Emer as well. So that team is back to
back
what it originally was. Oh, very good. Okay. up to the date news here on the Leinster Lion. Thanks to Jeff Neville. Thanks
Breaking news.
Exactly. Best of luck. Well, best of luck anyway to Adam Griggs, Kira Giffen, and everyone involved with the girls in green. So here's to two good wins for Ireland at the weekend, and of course, all the provinces are involved in action as well this weekend in the Pro 14. So let's see if we can get maybe 6 out of 6 from all of them. Right, so we're going to wrap it up there, guys. Thanks for all the comments coming through, and to Stephen and Jeff for joining me in the chat. It was a great old conversation. Hopefully we'll be back again next month with more to talk about. And here's to an Ireland victory at the weekend. So thanks to Stephen, thanks to Jeff. Good to have you on. Thanks to Mystery Sportswear for sponsoring, and thanks to Joe back in the production room. Thanks to you, sir, for keeping us all going. And we'll wrap it up there, folks. Have a good evening and stay safe, everyone. Slán.
Cheers, lads.
See you, folks.
See you guys.